Hey folks, this is Dr. Joe, and I just wanted to announce that we're going to cut off monthly updates in the way that we were doing it before. Instead, we transitioned BlueFoxInsights.ai to a substack so that you can more easily consume it. I think the previous version of the site was too complicated. It was too much like social media in its breadth of options, and really, I think most of us are pretty comfortable reading Substack blog posts. And so this video is going to be a video that I will embed into an article. You can watch these videos on their own, but I think they'll have more value, or you will have more understanding if you watch these videos in the context of the Substack BlueFoxInsights.ai blog posts. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about AI agents because you've probably heard this term coming out of Silicon Valley and kind of reverberating around the world. AI agents are very important to understand. They could get extremely complicated, but we're going to talk about them in a very simple and hopefully helpful way for you all. But I entitled this as AI Agents and Exponential Technology. So first, let's start with a story. By the way, the setup of this presentation, I've taken most of this from an individual named Peter Diamandis. I recently was able to see some of his presentations at the Abundance 360 Summit. And yeah, so I just wanted to give him credit. But I think this setup is really helpful when thinking about AI agents. And so the story goes that there was this, and maybe this is not even a true story, but just an illustrative story. There was a king in some far kingdom, and he had a mathematician in his kingdom that helped create or created the game of chess. And this king was so enamored by that game, he said to the mathematician, "I want to reward you." And at that time, money was rice. And so he said, how much rice or how much reward would you like? And the mathematician said, "Hey, you know what? I'll make a deal with you." And remember, this is a mathematician, so this individual knows exponential math, and most human beings have a hard time doing exponential mathematics. The mathematician said there's 64 blocks or spaces on a chessboard. How about we do this exercise where you pay me 1 grain of rice on the first square, then double it 2 grains on the second square, and then double it 4 grains on the third square, and so on and so forth. And he said that would be my payment. And the king said, "This is so little. Why is that all you want? But if that's what you want, yes, we will do that." And so my question to you is, how much rice do you think is on the 64th chessboard spot? And the answer is, I won't belabor or delay too much. 18 quintillion grains of rice. The story goes that this request basically bankrupted the kingdom because it was more rice than the kingdom even had. Now, I use this as an example because, this is just 2 to the power of 64. It's a simple mathematical concept, but all of us would use a calculator to do that. Why? Because our brains can't do it easily. And when you think about this illustrative story with chess, it's shocking. But what it shows is that when it comes to exponential growth, in the beginning, things seem very small and they seem like they're not really changing. 1 grain of rice to 2 grains of rice to 4 grains of rice to 8 to 16. It seems very small. And so this is called a power law distribution curve, where it starts very, very small, looks like it's not moving, and then all of a sudden it shoots up and we get to 18 quintillion grains of rice. Well, we are in the age of not exponential rice growth, but we are in the age of exponential technology growth. We have exponential technologies all around us that many of us are thinking, it's just growing like little grains of rice. It's not going that fast. And then all of a sudden, what the heck just happened? AI is one of those technologies. Other technologies are quantum computing, biotech, 3D printing, so on and so forth. Now, with regards to AI, there was a 1956 Dartmouth workshop entitled the Dartmouth Summer Research Project on Artificial Intelligence. This is where the term artificial intelligence was officially coined. And by the way, in the 1950s, this concept of artificial intelligence and computer science, it was kind of ridiculed. It wasn't pure computer science in people's minds and academics' minds. It was something kind of out of psychology. It just wasn't respected. I want to be respectful. It wasn't as respected as it should have been. I have a very high view of this field within computer science. And so from 1956, there was only linear progress that was made in this field. In 1999, there was only linear progress made from 1956 to 1999. And an individual, Ray Kurzweil, who I consider the Nostradamus of today, predicted that AGI, artificial general intelligence, would be achieved by 2029. But people ridiculed him back then. They said, "Are you kidding me?" And why? Because they were still at the horizontal rice doubling part of the power law distribution curve. It had not hit the hockey stick moment yet. Well, now experts are saying that 2029 is conservative. Some people say that AGI is going to be achieved in 2026. Now, I'm not going to go into the definition of AGI and all these things. That's not the point. The point is, we have a really hard time as human beings dealing with exponential growth, and therefore we have a really hard time envisioning exponential technology growth, and AI is coming close to that hockey stick curve, and we need to get ready. So, I'm sorry, one other quote. Arthur C. Clarke, this is paraphrased as a quote, but the day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. And this is just true in general. You know, someday there will be a cure for cancer, and the day before people will say that's just a crazy idea. And then when the cure comes, we'll say, wow, how did we not see that? How did we not know that it was so close? Why? Because in the background, things are moving and progressing, but they're just not progressing in a way that is linear. It is exponential. So the big idea for this video is that AI agents are one of many exponential technologies that bring uncertainty to our futures. That's another thing that I want to just point out, is that we as humans, we deal very badly with uncertainty, and we seek certainty. Well, exponential technologies bring uncertainty, and so we need to create a plan. Each one of us need to create an individual plan, and that's part of what the BlueFoxInsights.ai substack and my writings are going to be about from this point on. All right, so what are AI agents? There's so many definitions out there, but I'll use IBM's definition because it's a great definition. The term AI agents refers to a system or program that is capable of autonomously performing tasks on behalf of a user or another system by 1, designing its workflow, and 2, utilizing available tools. If you think about it, this is kind of how humans do any sort of general task. If you say, okay, I want to clean my house today, what does that mean? Well, first, you need to create a plan, a workflow. And then you need to then, secondly, execute one by one the items of that workflow using available tools. And so it's really reasoning, creating the workflow, and then action, taking the actions, right? So Google created a framework for AI agents, a theoretical framework, maybe some years ago, called React. Now, this is different than the web programming language, but if you're not a techie, you don't know what that means. That's cool. But React, it's just simply reason plus action smashed together, okay? And the idea is that theoretically, if you can get AI to do reasoning and then taking action, and then from action giving feedback to reasoning, and you just kind of do that circular motion, right? Then it could do a general task like clean a house, right? And so how does that work? Let's dig into that. Reason first. An AI agent is told to do something, and it first uses a large language model to think of the first few steps needed to do that thing. All right, let's take a pause there. I am not in any way the greatest computer scientist in the world. Maybe some would not even consider me a computer scientist, but I've studied computer science. I've done some work in that area. And I can tell you this, as far as I know, and somebody can prove me wrong, and I love it when people prove me wrong, prior to large language models, it was almost impossible to get a computer to take some kind of general question and then just create some kind of workflow from that out of thin air. Previously, somebody would have to hard code all the options of the answers, and it wouldn't just kind of put things together in a way that is surprising or serendipitous, right? Well, large language models change the game. All of a sudden, you can open ChatGPT, and right now you could say, what steps I want to clean my house? What should I do? And then ChatGPT will throw out a plan, which is essentially a reasoning workflow plan. The problem is there's hallucinations that create bad instructions. What do I mean by that? Now, hallucinations can be something like, oh, you say that's just like, it's just wrong. Like I say, let's clean my house. And then it says, to clean your house, you need to blow up your house. Then it will be truly clean. Okay, like that's a ridiculous hallucination. But some hallucinations that come out are not you can't really put your finger on it as like, okay, that's not a terrible idea, but that's not what I would have done in the first place. All right, let me give you an example. What if I asked a reasoning large language model for an AI agent to help me to learn how to speak Korean? And what is a large language model? I've spoken about this. I can't go into detail in this video, but essentially, a large language model is a snapshot of the whole internet. So you ingest the whole internet, at least the first foundation models. First, take the whole internet, and then from that snapshot, using neural network technology, auto-type answers. Now, auto-type is just like what you see on your phone when you open up messaging and you're trying to type something, and then it starts to like try to auto-complete your sentence. Some people say that large language models have gotten more advanced than this, or that we have a misunderstanding now a little bit about how this happens. There's all these, not controversies, there's all these kind of theoretical debates. But I think most people in computer science will agree that, it's some form of advanced autotyping, which means if it's just probabilistic and statistical prediction of words and sentences and paragraphs, it is not wisdom, and whatever that means, right? What is wisdom? It is not consciousness. It is not having some kind of soul. So therefore, what it means is it's a mathematical kind of probabilistic output fabric, right? So it could say the reasoning step as the first step, I will start by downloading the Duolingo app. Okay, that's a great first step. That's what I would do. In fact, I love Duolingo. Duolingo is a Pittsburgh company. Go Pittsburgh, go Duolingo. So that's great. But it could also, as a first step, say, I will start by buying a ticket to Korea. Now, here's the thing. It makes sense. It's not like fake news, because immersing yourself in a culture is probably the best way to learn a language. It's not the first step I would have taken. It's a bit extreme, but it makes sense. Or it could also probabilistically say, collect advice on learning Korean from social media. All right, now we're getting into, is that really wise? What is social media? Et cetera, et cetera. But it still makes sense. And so it's kind of these types of hallucinations, and maybe we don't call them hallucinations, but they're things that we would not necessarily have chosen. It's unwise. And yet, if there's this autonomous reasoning slash action AI agent, then those kind of unwise decisions could snowball, right? Because then what happens after the reasoning step, the action is taken. The AI agent uses available tools that humans have allowed it to use to execute an action. Okay, let's stop there. So right now, with AI agentic technology, the only tools that most companies in Silicon Valley have given access to these agents are being able to use a mouse and a keyboard, which is pretty powerful. This is why white collar labor is, it's in a lot of I wouldn't say jeopardy, but there's a lot of question as what's going to happen next, right? If a computer can move your mouse and it can type, then it's going to be interesting the type of actions that it can take, right? Well, then it takes these actions and it sends back feedback to reason again to continue the loop. So the first example was, I will start by downloading a Duolingo app, and let's pretend I gave the AI agent the capability to autonomously download things from the App Store on my app phone or iPhone without having to ask me. So then it does it. It downloads Duolingo app, and then it sends back to reason without me knowing. Remember, this is future state. It's just autonomously going, saying, I have downloaded the Duolingo app. What next? Okay, that's great. That's what I would have done. But what about start buying a ticket to Korea? And let's say I gave it access to my credit card. It goes to American Airlines. That's the airline that I use, buys the ticket, and then it sends back to reason without me knowing, I bought a plane ticket to Korea for Joe. What next? And then the reasoning agent says, well, we got to call him an Uber right now because he's got to go to the airport. And I don't even know this is going on. And then an Uber shows up at my house, or maybe self-driving Waymo, and it says, we're ready to take you to the airport. And I said, what's going on? It says, well, you're going to Korea because you said you wanted to learn how to speak Korean. Whoa, a bit extreme, right? But you're kind of getting the point, right? Or collect advice on learning Korean from social media. I give it the tool prior to access all of the internet, including social media. It downloads the most popular TikTok posts on this topic, and then it sends back to reason, okay, I have posts from people on TikTok. What next? And I didn't know that maybe it aggregates the data, and I didn't know it came from TikTok. So then maybe I'm basing the learning of my Korean on stuff that's not really a great basis to learn Korean. You kind of get the point here, right? So this loop, it doesn't work yet. Now, most Silicon Valley and many nation states are rushing to figure out how to make this work. And you can understand why. I mean, even for national security reasons. This is a game changer. This will happen in the future. How soon will it happen? Nobody knows. Anybody creating predictions on this? I mean, come on. All of us know the statistical probability of people's ability to predict the future. I mean, it's not great. But at some point, it's going to happen. And I think for us to just say, well, it's not going to be for 10 years, that's not considering exponential growth and exponential technology. And by the way, this is already happening. Okay, what is this? This is people are already connecting action tools like a keyboard and mouse to a large language model reasoning module, and then having a human supervise this. Now, why is this helpful? Well, right now it's kind of like a toy, right? Where like OpenAI, ChatGPT Operator is an example of this, where you say, hey, go find me a trip and book me a ticket on blah, 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 blah. And then it's not great, but it does that or makes a reservation for you on OpenTable. And then you got to kind of monitor the whole process. Then you think to yourself, man, this is actually slower than me doing it myself. Except, again, you're thinking small. You're thinking, okay, well, then, yeah, this doesn't make sense because it's just one thing, right? Well, what about this? This is also happening right now. I see this. I actually helped build this, or at least architect this. Other people build it through Blue Fox Labs, where a human agent helps to orchestrate a team of these one-way agents, right? So now when you have a team of these things, okay, now it does act as a force multiplier. And this, again, even in its current state, it really begs the question, what's happening with white-collar labor, right? I think you get the point here. And I'll write a little bit more about this on my Substack. You'll see the different format that I'm going to follow with regards to giving you information through my Substack, bluefoxinsights.ai, which I can just tell you right now, my format is going to be one of my ways of honoring my parents. So you can check it out there. But the conclusion here is AI agents are one of many exponential technologies that bring uncertainty to our futures. And I have a big question for you, or big questions. What does this mean for you? And how will you plan for this potential future? You can plan for it. We know where this is directionally going. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we know theoretically how this is being conceptualized and attacked right now by tech companies. So you have a choice, and you have you not only a choice, you have an opportunity to take an adventure in figuring out how will you make changes and plans for your individual lives, and for your for business owners or business leaders. How will you help your business traverse this exponentially growing technology future? Thank you very much.